Amazing twist, while at the beach with my kids, I received a shocking SMS that changed everything. The bright sun danced on the waves as Jack watched Mia and Lucas giggle, splattering water on each other. The salty breeze carried their laughter, a sound that seemed to cleanse away the grief that clung to him like a specter. This seaside getaway was a celebration, a reward for years of hard work after losing Sarah. They'd built a beautiful life from the rubble of loss. But as the waves crashed rhythmically, those thoughts began to erode. Just then, his phone vibrated, pulling him from the warmth of familial joy. He glanced down, reading the words that would change everything. A prestigious university, his dream, accepted his research proposal. A tidal wave of excitement washed over him, but it was quickly eclipsed by a deep unease. Along with the triumph came the daunting reality of relocating. What would it mean for Mia and Lucas? Could he disrupt their fragile happiness for a fleeting career opportunity? His mind raced, reflecting back on the countless late nights of grading, the missed dinners dedicated to lesson plans, and those weekends spent balancing parenthood and ambition. They had fought through the storm together, their bond strengthening through adversity. But now, the thought of uprooting them was unnerving. He could already see the shadows of uncertainty in their faces, feel the distance creeping in. Would success mean losing the very essence of what he had built? Before he could descend deeper into that turmoil, another message flashed. A former colleague had sabotaged his work. Bitterness clawed at him, someone he had trusted had pitted him against failure for personal gain. The injustice ignited something within him, a fierce determination to confront this betrayal. But in doing so, would he risk further instability for his children? Just as he began to grapple with the gravity of his choices, he remembered his mentor who had been a quiet presence in his corner all along. This thought brought clarity, illuminating the invisible ties of loyalty and support woven into his journey. Yet, it only deepened the anguish. Would he be able to seize this opportunity without losing his children in the fray? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack looked up at Mia and Lucas, their carefree spirits a painful reminder of what he stood to lose. Could he truly prioritize a prestigious job above the love they shared? Each splashing laugh felt like it was edging him closer to a decision he dreaded. The sun began to dip lower, throwing shimmering reflections on the ocean, but within Jack, a storm brewed. Would he confront a dubious past to chase success, or would he stay rooted and embrace perhaps a different kind of triumph? The air thickened as dusk approached, constricting his chest. He had a choice ahead, one that could define the legacy he would leave for Mia and Lucas. What stood at the intersection of personal ambition and familial devotion? Each wave crashed harder against the sand, matching the heartbeat of his deepening internal conflict. What determination would rise from these tides of uncertainty? All he knew was that he was standing on the edge of a monumental decision, one that weighed heavy on his heart. Jack took a deep breath, the salty air filling his lungs, encouraging him to step back and rethink his course. He watched his children chase each other along the edge of the surf, their laughter drawing him from his turmoil and tethering him to the moment. But the acceptance into the university echoed insistently in his mind, each tide drawing closer, draining the joy from the scene before him. "Dad! Come play!" Mia called, her voice bright, unencumbered by the weight of adult concerns. That he forced a smile, because what could he say? His internal battle felt insurmountable, and yet here, his children were living wholly in the present. How long had it been since he had immersed himself in pure joy, forgetting professional accolades or the politics of academia? He felt the pressure of their gaze, he didn't want his dreams to eclipse their happiness. A moment's pause was all it took for clarity to slip through the fog of doubt. Perhaps this was his chance to teach Mia and Lucas that worth didn't lie solely in professional success, but also in understanding what truly mattered. He had to model resilience and integrity not just for himself, but for them. Could chasing this opportunity be a way for them to witness their father's passion in action? Jack shook his head, dismissing the whispers of doubt, and splashed into the fray, embracing the playful chaos. As he tackled Lucas into the waves, laughter erupted, mingling with a solemn vow to keep his ambitions tethered to the family he loved. Each wave crashing against him underscored his determination to hold on to both his aspirations and their happiness. The evening sky bathed everything in twilight shades, and as he shared a moment of quiet with Mia and Lucas, each nestled against him on the shoreline, his phone buzzed again, breaking the stillness. He fished it out, heart racing, not knowing if hope or dread awaited him. It was a follow-up message from the university, laying out their expectations and potential relocation dates. This was real now. If he were to take the plunge, he needed a plan. The decision would involve meetings, negotiations disrupting their lives in ways he hadn't fully processed yet. Jack felt the squeeze of responsibility tightening around him. How could he balance the dreams he held while also safeguarding the world Mia and Lucas thrived in? The email read something along the lines of excitement, buzzwords and possibilities laced throughout, but all he could see was the looming specter of his past choices. What would his late nights of research, his ambitions for academic accolades, mean to them if it meant uprooting their lives? There was a time when ambition felt like freedom, now, it felt like shackles. He set the phone down, resolute. He needed to confront those who had wronged him. His former colleague had tried to pit him against his goals, and Jack could either cower in self-doubt or rise up as an advocate for himself. His children deserved to see that strength. But would confronting this betrayal threaten the stability he was striving to preserve for his kids? He stared at the horizon, wrestling with possibilities and probabilities. Perhaps it was time to cultivate a blend of ambition and affection, channeling the unexpected challenges into a newfound strength. The moment came crashing down as he contemplated even his next words. Would it be enough to safeguard his family from the storm that loomed ahead? He felt the tides pulling, pushing, and he had a decision to make. The crossroad was in sight, and with it, the need to face the truth, his truth. The university could wait, the question now was how long could he hold off the confrontation that needed to happen. The time had come to rise above his fears and confront the betrayal head-on, but at what cost? Jack watched the last glimmers of sunlight dip below the horizon, awash in a mixture of warmth and uncertainty. The laughter of Mia and Lucas still echoed in his ears, but it was slowly being consumed by the waves of introspection crashing over him. He stood at the edge of the shore, feet buried in the cool sand, trying to ground himself despite the storm brewing inside. That he turned his thoughts inward, grappling with the implications of his past actions. Confrontation could take many forms. Reaching out to his traitorous colleague was one path, but becoming the advocate he aspired to be for Mia and Lucas was the ultimate challenge that echoed deeply within him. Yet a sense of terror seeped into his resolve. What if he was seen as weak? Would they understand the turmoil that shaped his decisions? Those thoughts gnawed at him as he took a few steps back to where his kids were setting up a small fire pit. While they were laughing and gathering driftwood, Jack noticed the way their very existence brought him solace. Each giggle was a reminder of the innocence he longed to protect. A mix of pride and fear surged within him. "Come on, Dad!" Mia exclaimed, breaking his trail of contemplation. "You have to help. We need a big fire to toast marshmallows." He approached them with a smile, but the weight of his own thoughts lingered like a cloud over their gathering. He knelt beside them, grabbing twigs and branches, but his mind was elsewhere. The choices ahead loomed larger than the flames flickering before him. "Can we go camping as a family next weekend?" Lucas suddenly asked, breaking the silence once more. Jack paused, the unexpected shift pulling him from the depths of his turmoil. "Absolutely," he replied, though the word felt foreign on his tongue. The idea of moving forward with his children was more welcoming than the chaotic career shifting he had believed made him a good father. As they built the fire, his phone chirped again, pulling him into an uncomfortable void of clutter. It was another message from the university, a checklist of requirements outlined in eager optimism. The contrast between their excitement and his apprehensions made his pulse quicken. This was more than an opportunity, it was a potential rupture in the fabric of his family's life that he glanced at Mia and Lucas, their faces illuminated by the fire, eyes sparkling with curiosity. They were the embodiment of what he wanted to protect. His children should feel free to chase their own ambitions, unburdened by his fears. If he genuinely intended to teach them resilience, then he must navigate this tumultuous path with integrity. Jack's resolve shifted like the tide. What if he used this confrontation to demonstrate strength? What if he turned his fears into a lesson for the kids, showcasing not only his choices but the values of standing up for one's self? The idea felt empowering amidst the uncertainty, a chance for growth, not just for himself but alongside his children. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. The confrontation was inevitable, but Jack realized he could shape the narrative. It wouldn't just be about battling old demons, it would be a lesson in resilience. The flames danced, casting shadows that tethered him to the moment, but deeper shadows loomed ahead. Would he rise to meet the challenges that lay before him? Would he find the courage to face the specter of betrayal without shattering the stability of his family life? As he looked from the fire to his children, an electric awareness surged through him. Perhaps this journey wasn't solely about preserving balance, perhaps it was about forging strength. With his heart racing and mind swirling, Jack wrestled with the weight of his choices as the fire crackled against the evening wind. The night felt like a prelude, an electric tension hanging in the air. What awaited him on that next call? The thought stirred dread and excitement alike. Would he discover the resolve to confront both his past and future in one powerful moment? The question echoed in the silence around them, pulling him deeper into contemplation. The crackling fire broke the stillness as Jack's thoughts spiraled, but something shifted when he saw Mia and Lucas roast marshmallows, faces glowing with joy. Each bite was a small victory against the uncertainty that shadowed him. As he watched them, clarity began to unfold. Perhaps his path forward ought to start with their laughter, a bridge he could build between their innocence and his turbulent decisions. He pulled away from his internal monologue, realizing that even amidst chaos, these moments entwined them stronger. In those fleeting seconds, his perspective began to reorganize itself. There could be strength derived from vulnerability, a capacity for resilience built upon his honest confrontations. Jack had spent too long hiding within the confines of fear. The time had come to embrace authenticity. What if he allowed himself just for a moment to disclose his struggles to Mia and Lucas? They were not as naive as he often presumed. They possessed an innate understanding of complexity, just like any adult navigating life's hurdles. "Hey, kiddos," he said, leaning in, mindful to catch their attention. "Can I tell you something?" Both of them turned, marshmallows practically forgotten in the glow, the fire's dance reflecting a spark of curiosity in their eyes. "I've been feeling overwhelmed," he admitted, hesitant but resolute. "You know that job I told you about? There's a lot going on with it, and I'm nervous about how it might affect us. Sometimes it makes me feel lost." Mia furrowed her brows, but Lucas leaned in closer. "Dad, are you going to quit? I thought you liked that job." There it was, the innocent question that struck a nerve. It pierced through Jack's facade. "I do like it, but sometimes, things happen that can be really tricky, and I need to figure out how to handle it better." Lucas nodded. "You always tell us to face your fears. Aren't you going to do that?" A wave of warmth surged through Jack like the heat from the fire. Here were his children, embodying the very lessons he longed to impart while he tiptoed between his insecurities and responsibilities. "You're right, buddy," he replied, heart swelling with a mix of pride and a pinch of humility. "I need to be brave. Just like you are when you ride your bike." Mia's eyes glimmered as she added, "It's okay to be scared, Daddy. You just have to try." Her words crystallized something profound within him. They believed in him, familial bonds stitched together by trust and admiration. By voicing his struggles, he wasn't merely confessing vulnerabilities, he was opening the door to growth both personally and relationally. He was offering an example of resilience. As the fire simmered, he felt as though he had lit a different kind of flame, a commitment to confront his professional challenges with integrity. This convergence of family and ambition ignited a sense of agency within him. He could approach the looming confrontation with John, his disloyal colleague, not with resentment but with the determination to redefine the narrative. But just as this resolve began to settle, his phone vibrated again, jolting him into the present moment, a stark reminder of the demands awaiting him. He peered at the screen. The message preview indicated it wasn't just any communication, it was a reminder about the upcoming faculty meeting where he would need to face John. Sudden trepidation gripped him. This wasn't merely a job opportunity, it was a reckoning. Jack inhaled deeply, fortified by the unexpected honesty he had shared with his kids. Here comes the real test, he whispered to himself, determination resurfacing alongside lingering doubt. The night stretched ahead, a precipice of choices and reflections swirling in the darkness. What would he say to John? Could he balance integrity with confrontation, teaching his children the true meaning of resilience? Jack steeled himself, his resolve nudging him closer to clarity in an understated chaos. There was still much left to discover, and one question hovered tantalizingly at the forefront of his mind: just how much was he willing to risk? For both his integrity and the future he envisioned for his family. As dawn broke over the horizon, Jack's thoughts raced like the waves lapping against the shore. The faculty meeting loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon, foreboding yet undeniable. He sat on the edge of Mia and Lucas' sandcastle, each grain of sand reminding him of the stability he sought to build in his life. This, however, was not just about a meeting, it was about a transformation. He watched his children giggle as they chased the surf, their laughter infusing a sense of purpose into his otherwise tumultuous mind. With every splash, they were encapsulating raw joy, the essence, in which Jack hoped to find his own redemption. It was easy to foster enthusiasm, it was much harder to help cultivate fortitude. Yet here he was, at the cusp of embracing both. The sun began its ascent, illuminating the beach in golden hues, and Jack realized this moment was an opportunity to solidify his commitment to confronting his fears. There would be no concealing the anxiety within him when he walked into that meeting. He couldn't mold resilience for his children while remaining ensnared in his own uncertainty. That he dove deeper into his thoughts, understanding the calculated risks he had previously feared. Would he challenge John directly, exposing not just his betrayal but the insecurities that festered beneath the surface? What if, in standing his ground, he inspired others? This was the epiphany that stirred restlessly within him. His struggles could serve as a catalyst for change. "Hey, kiddos!" Jack called, breaking the noise of the crashing waves that seemed to mimic his turbulent thoughts. They turned, their faces brightening at his call. "Can we talk about bravery?" Mia and Lucas swirled around him, their wet hair glistening under the sun. "Are we going to be brave like superheroes, Daddy?" Lucas asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Exactly. But it's not just about being strong. Sometimes, being brave means showing up even when you're scared." He knelt to speak with them, his heart heavy but resolute. "I've got to face someone who hasn't been nice to me. It might be tough, but I need to do it to protect us." Mia pouted slightly, glancing between her father and Lucas. "Does that mean we can be brave together?" Jack felt warmth swell in his chest. Here were his children, offering their support without hesitation. "Yes, together. You know what bravery looks like. It's not the absence of fear but standing up despite it. Just like when you both ride your bikes," he said, emphasizing the connection they had made during their shared moments of vulnerability. Mia nodded, her eyes widening in understanding. "And it's okay if it doesn't work out perfectly, right?" "Absolutely," Jack replied, a smile creeping onto his face. "It's all about trying your best." He looked out at the ocean, letting the sound of the waves drown out the apprehensions echoing in his mind. Yet, that nagging reality clawed at him. What awaited him at the meeting remained shrouded in uncertainty. How would John react? Would his confrontation spur collaboration or lead to conflict? "Let us make a promise," Jack suggested, looking at Mia and Lucas earnestly. "If I face my fear today, we celebrate with our favorite ice cream afterward. Deal?" "Deal!" They shouted in unison. As they dove back into beach play, Jack felt the twirling anticipation of the day's confrontation shift into palpable energy. His resolve solidified. He would no longer cower in fear, nor would he allow John's negativity to dictate the direction of his life. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in fiery hues, Jack was more determined than ever. With a heart set both on his children and his professional identity, he whispered to himself, "I've got this." He turned to look at Mia and Lucas, exhilarated by both their joy and the purpose behind his impending confrontation. But as he prepared to leave the beach, the phone buzzed quietly in his pocket, the vibrations almost a dark omen. What message lay waiting that could alter the trajectory of this transformative day? The anticipation felt heavy as Jack pulled his phone from his pocket, his heart quickening at the possibility of what it might contain. The message blinked on the screen. "Can we discuss important changes regarding your position? John." In a split second, his resolve began to waver. Was this a front to undermine him further, or did it signal his opportunity to regain some control over his professional landscape? In that instant, he felt a pulse of terror mixed with something unexpected and invigorating thrill. This was the moment he had both dreaded and craved. The laughter of Mia and Lucas faded into the background as he stood at the edge of the beach, a physical divide between the carefree joy of childhood and the looming challenges of adulthood. He kept replaying the message, each element igniting a rush of thoughts. What had he to lose? Was it truly only his job, or was it also the model of courage he wanted to exemplify to his children? In a deep breath, Jack made a decision. He didn't merely want to confront John, he needed to confront his own fears. He would go to that meeting prepared not just to defend his position, but to meticulously outline the choices made that put him in this vulnerable place. He would document the manipulation, and more profoundly, he would lay bare the ramifications of toxic leadership. "Let us head home, kiddos," he called out, abruptly shifting from contemplation to decisive action. Mia and Lucas, still splashing in the shallow water, reluctantly made their way back to him, cheeks flushed with sun and excitement. "Are we getting ice cream now?" Lucas piped up, a splash of enthusiasm that contrasted sharply with Jack's current internal storm. "Not just yet, buddy. We have something important to handle first." He didn't want to dampen their spirits, but the weight of his own future hung heavily on his shoulders. They climbed into the car, cheerful chatter barely puncturing his burgeoning anxiety as he gripped the steering wheel a bit too tightly. The drive back felt elongated, a cluttered mess of scenarios unfurling in the corners of his mind. He remained focused on the road ahead but couldn't escape the gnawing fear that clawed at his gut. He considered their previous interactions. Why had he let John bully him? Why hadn't he asserted himself before? Jack realized that in every instance of silence he had offered, he let John's words weave a spell of doubt not only over his self-worth but also over his potential as a leader. It wasn't enough to simply act bravely, he needed to embody his convictions, rally others to understand their worth too. His personal development wasn't just about self-assertion, it was about cultivating an environment in which others could thrive free of fear. As he navigated the familiar streets, he pictured his colleagues sitting at the conference table, their faces a mix of concern and anticipation. This wouldn't be just a battle over politics, it would be a stand for a new beginning, a shift toward accountability. Arriving home, the house's familiar sense enveloped him, grounding him as the children dashed inside. Jack paused before the door, recalling the sandcastle, the laughter, the promise of ice cream. Those memories pinched his heart, focusing his resolve. He wanted more than a sweet indulgence, he needed to instill hope and determination that transcended this meeting. "Let's do this," he whispered under his breath. As he prepared to face John, two questions consumed him. What if John turned on him with fury? And, more hauntingly, what if this confrontation didn't unfold as hoped? The answer lay in his choice to proceed. That he stepped inside, the sounds of innocence fading into a new backdrop of challenge. Each heartbeat echoed his determination not just to survive but to transform every moment of fear into a step toward empowerment. The gnashing of voices awaited him, but so did the possibility of triumph. Would this choice to confront a toxic presence redefine his path, or would it morph into a more profound struggle? Jack took another deep breath, sensing the electric tension unraveling, ready to face what lay ahead. The meeting would happen soon, but as he squared his shoulders and faced the gathering storm, he questioned, could he be the catalyst for change he so desperately sought? Jack stood in the cramped conference room, and the air felt thick as he prepared to face John. The flickering fluorescent lights above only heightened the tension in the atmosphere. He stole a glance at his colleagues, all seated around the table with a palpable sense of expectation that sent a ripple of anxiety through him, but he was done with anxiety's reign over his life. He had rehearsed his points in the mirror multiple times, and now, under the scrutinizing gaze of his peers, he would finally draw the line. He took a steadying breath, scanning the faces around him. Some were sympathetic, yet others seemed skeptical. He needed to evoke a narrative that highlighted collective responsibility rather than defensively placing the blame solely on himself. "Thank you for coming together on short notice," John started, his voice smooth yet detached. "We need to address some performance issues within the team." The word issues hung in the air like a heavy smoke, begging Jack to respond. Moments like these had echoed in his past, leaving him feeling muted as John's accusations festered unchallenged. But not today. He straightened his back, steeling himself. "I appreciate the feedback," Jack said, carefully choosing his tone. "However, I believe it is essential we discuss the systemic problems contributing to this team's performance as well. It's about more than just individual accountability, we need to examine our leadership approach." There was a brief silence, and Jack's heart raced. The very moment for which he had hoped was at hand. John's expression faltered, but then he reclaimed composure, a subtle smirk crossing his lips. "And what changes would you propose?" "It's easy to point fingers." Jack shook his head, unwilling to let John's dismissal deter him. "I've documented various instances where the team felt unsupported by key decisions made. Our morale has suffered, and accountability isn't just about reprimanding those below us, it's about ensuring a supportive structure for all." John's eyes narrowed slightly. Jack sensed the tension in the room shift. He pressed on, his drive fueled by more than just the need to win this confrontation. It was about the integrity he wished to instill in his work environment. "I won't act as though I'm innocent. I was complicit in allowing toxic behavior to thrive. But that stops now. If we want this place to excel, we need transparency in leadership, collaboration, and open dialogues." Jack's voice carried strength as he continued. "We must lead by example and create a safe space for everyone on the team to voice their concerns." The room filled with hushed whispers, and Jack could see the shifting allegiances flickering across many of the faces present. Some were nodding, a small victory that encouraged him to push further. He was tired of feeling that his value rested in just being a cog in a broken machine. John's skepticism seemed to crack for a moment as he contemplated a potential shift in the status quo. "Perhaps we can look into restructuring team feedback systems," John began, still wary but seemingly open to discussion. "And it's not just feedback systems," Jack interjected, now sensing momentum. "We need to establish concrete measures for team accountability, where every voice is heard and valued. This isn't just about performance, it's about fostering a culture that empowers everyone to grow." As Jack articulated his vision of growth and accountability, something within him ignited. He realized he was not just speaking for himself, he was rallying for his colleagues, many of whom had quietly suffered under John's leadership style. With every word, he felt a new sense of purpose brewing. This was not merely a confrontation, it was the start of something transformative. But just as Jack began to feel emboldened, a persistent doubt crept back in. What if the collective voices against John faltered? What if, instead of accountability, retribution loomed ahead? As the discussions around the table unfolded, uncertainty gnawed at his resolve. Was this truly the beginning of change, or merely an illusion? Jack sensed the stakes rising, not just for him but for everyone who dared to hope for a better workplace, and then John spoke again, cutting sharply through the chatter, summoning a silence. "Let us not pretend this is about improvement. This is about you, isn't it, Jack? Are you willing to accept the consequences of stepping up?" His heart raced as his own question hovered over the room. The moment of reckoning had crystallized. Could he brace himself for the fallout? Jack squared his shoulders once more, determination solidifying inside him as he prepared for what lay ahead. The confrontation reached a tipping point. Far beyond personal risk, it represented a confrontation against a leadership style that needed dismantling. But in doing so, what was he prepared to lose? The weight of his choice bore down on him again, and he braced for the answer. Would he emerge as the unyielding force for necessary change, or would he simply become a casualty in the chaotic struggle? In the shimmering stillness that followed John's harsh challenge, the air swelled with tension, thickening almost palpably. Jack felt as if the walls were closing in. He recognized that this was not solely about performance metrics, it was about his own burgeoning identity as a leader, a role he had avoided until now. Could he truly commit to this change? Consequences aren't fearsome when they're necessary, Jack finally replied, his voice steadying as he intentionally detailed his thoughts. If we really want accountability, we need to establish an environment that doesn't protect poor leadership but instead challenges it. For a fleeting moment, he caught the eye of one of his team members, Sarah. Her expression mirrored a silent affirmation, igniting a flicker of courage within him. Encouraged by this connection, Jack pressed on, wading deeper into the waters of vulnerability that had always made him uneasy. If that means risking my position to stand by what's right, then so be it. Leadership should be about empowering others and driving meaningful change, not just climbing a corporate ladder. John's face hardened again, a mask of palpable displeasure cloaked in faux calm. You're suggesting we drop the hierarchy and take accountability at your behest? In what world does that equate to leadership? John's scoff was like a jolt, reminding Jack of the many instances he had shrunk back in the past, but now, something within him stirred, it felt as if a dam had broken. In our world, John, one where we believe in collaboration instead of dictation. Leadership should not terrify people into compliance. We need to be motivated to speak up, to innovate, and to feel safe in making mistakes without the weight of their repercussions stifling our growth. The unrest in the room settled momentarily as Jack's words took root. He could hear the low murmurs of agreement, a chorus undulating from behind skeptical brows. Was this what he had been missing all along, a sense of community in their shared struggle? In the back of his mind, he questioned if John could recognize the sliver of truth in his reasoning, or was Jack simply invoking another futile protest against an unyielding opponent? The thought simmered, bubbling uncomfortably beneath the surface. If he was to embody his vision, he had to come to terms with the reality that resistance was not just likely, it was inevitable. Jack shifted his stance, redirecting his focus toward the group. Imagine what could be achieved if we established committees led by team members across divisions. Open forums for discussing issues without fearing gunfire from above. This isn't just an appeal for change, it's our pathway to success. The atmosphere began to morph, conversations ignited among his peers, energizing the room with ideas and personal stories of discontent. Jack was no longer alone in this fight, a collective determination began to resonate, igniting a palpable urge for real change. Are you proposing a complete system overhaul? John interjected, his skepticism an unmistakable barrier. Jack could see the uncertainty flickering like a candle trapped in the wind. Footfalls began to tremble as individuals weighed the risk of aligning themselves with Jack's emerging vision. I'm saying it's time to stop pretending everything is fine. If we are going to navigate the future together, we must acknowledge where we are weak, Jack articulated, his voice rising with newfound passion. It's about taking those failings and flipping them into leadership opportunities. That's where accountability starts. But John's glare turned fierce and consuming. Be careful what you wish for, Jack. Leadership requires certain sacrifices, ones you might not be willing to make. Jack's pulse quickened again. What sacrifices lay ahead? He felt the tensions of potential betrayal curling around him, yet at the same time, the thrill of possibility surged through his veins. The stakes had never been clearer. He couldn't retreat now. He had initiated a conversation that would change the fabric of their workplace. The road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but perhaps uncertainty was just a necessary crucible for growth. Then let me ask you, John, Jack challenged, What are you willing to sacrifice for our team to succeed together? As silence enveloped them once more, the unspoken tension hung like the sharp edge of a knife, leaving Jack to ponder what awaited him after this vulnerable proclamation. Would he emerge leading a charge toward progress, or would he find himself grappling with isolation once more? Deep beneath the surface, Jack understood one undeniable truth: the moment of reckoning had only just begun. What lay beyond this confrontation, a fundamental shift in their culture or a personal cost he could never foresee? The air thickened with uncertainty as Jack absorbed the silence, the weight of John's challenge looming over him like a storm cloud. He felt the eyes of his colleagues upon him, some cautious and others sparking with the embers of shared dissent. The room pulsed with possibilities, yet those possibilities were tangled in the risks they'd have to confront. "Are you ready to lead?" A voice broke through his thoughts. It was Sarah, breaking the spell of silence. "Because it sounds like you're calling for us all to step into something bigger than ourselves." Her words reverberated through him, echoing both a challenge and a commitment he wasn't entirely sure he was prepared to accept. He had spent too long as an observer. Now, it seemed, he had to navigate the treacherous waters of influence and responsibility. "I am," Jack answered, firmer this time, infusing his voice with a deliberate strength. But doubt clawed at him. What if he faltered? What if this odyssey of leadership revealed deeper insecurities? "It's not enough to want change, is it?" Jack continued, grounding his stance amid the swirling currents of vulnerability. "True leadership demands grit and the will to make uncomfortable choices." He scanned faces that now flickered with the flickers of hope mingled with skepticism. Jack was growing, he realized, not only as a leader but also as an individual seeking authentic connections. The honesty in these dialogues brought clarity. Jack thought about the risk of losing his position, the specter of betrayal that John had warned him about. Could he shoulder that burden? Jack took a breath, allowing the moment to sink in. Leadership was not just a title, it was an ongoing negotiation with self-doubt and external resistance. "What if we initiate small changes first?" he proposed, feeling a flicker of inspiration burst forth. "Let us create an open channel for advice and feedback, perhaps even informal discussion groups to address our concerns. No penalties, just shared experiences." The murmurs in the room exploded into a brief flurry of ideas, each member eager to cast their vision for a more transparent environment. Jack felt exhilarated, but it was tinged with an undercurrent of fear. What if this excitement was merely temporary? But what will happen when traditionalists push back? John's voice cut through again, this time marked with a hint of intrigue rather than outright dismissal. "You think they'll just roll over?" Jack squared his shoulders. "I don't believe they will." The fire within him stoked. But change is often met with resistance individually and collectively. We must be ready to meet that challenge head-on. "I won't back down, and neither should we." As the words left his mouth, uncertainty gripped him. Did he genuinely know what he was asking of his colleagues? Had he thought through the ramifications if dissenters didn't conform? Challenging the very structure Jack had been raised to respect would not only rip through his comfort zone but might also alienate him from others. What did he truly stand to gain from this upheaval? Were his aspirations for a more fulfilling workspace founded on his newfound confidence, or were they just a fleeting shadow against the harsh reality of corporate politics? Jack's gaze met John's once more, his heart racing with each second of unbroken eye contact. The current between them crackled, an unspoken battle for the heart of their organization. "Will you stand with me, or will you retreat into silence like you have before?" Jack dared to ask, challenging more than John's authority. He confronted the very fabric of his own fears. "You're playing a dangerous game," John warned, but Jack sensed a shift in his tone, one that suggested a growing acknowledgement of Jack's emerging authority. Taking another deep breath, Jack realized that stepping closer to his vision meant recognizing the duality of leadership, the potential to illuminate or obscure, to unite or fracture. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but each step could solidify his identity as a leader. As the meeting drew to a close, Jack felt an uncertain anticipation swell within him. He had laid his foundation, but what would he build upon it? The stakes were rising as whispers of doubt lingered in the corners of the conversation. He had made himself vulnerable, now the question loomed, would his alliances hold firm, or would they shatter under pressure? As he stepped into the hallway, a sinking realization draped over him like a shroud. The discussion was just the first of many, the true test lay ahead, and in the labyrinth of leadership, it could lead him to unforeseen edges. A new revelation began to weave its way through his consciousness. Sometimes, the very people you need in your corner can also be the ones standing in your way. What awaited him on the other side of this confrontation? The answer was murky, but Jack was ready to dive deeper into the tangled web of possibilities and discoveries. Jack emerged from the faculty meeting, the tension lifting slightly as the discussions wound down, yet uncertainty still lingered like fog over the coastline. He paused in the hallway, regaining his composure as he replayed his words in his mind. For the first time, he had asserted his voice in a way that resonated not just within him but hopefully among his peers. The risk was palpable. Standing up to John had been an exercise in vulnerability, but he, along with his colleagues, set a pivotal course toward accountability. Taking a deep breath, he stepped outside into the light of day. The sun was bright, illuminating a world filled with opportunities far removed from the dimly lit confines of conflict. He thought of Mia and Lucas, their laughter echoing in his mind, grounding him in the moment. They had watched him confront his fears today. He had shown them what it meant to lead, to stand firm against adversities, regardless of the outcome. The subsequent days were a whirlwind of unexpected support and challenges as the shifts took root. The faculty members rallied behind Jack's proposal for an open channel of communication and feedback. Initial discussions triggered a substantial restructuring of team dynamics, promoting collaboration. Jack demonstrated resilience and accountability, recognizing each small victory, the shared notes from colleagues reflecting newfound encouragement, the growing camaraderie as faces around the table began to shed their doubt. It was invigorating to witness his leadership manifesting in tangible change. With every collaborative meeting, he felt strengthened, every encouraging nod from a colleague reminded him of the potential they all held collectively. Throughout this transformative period, Jack learned to bring his children's philosophies into his professional life. He stripped away the noise of fear and began to embrace the complexities behind leadership, not just for personal gains but for the team's growth. He observed that teaching Mia and Lucas how to confront challenges mirrored his own journey. He modeled integrity and empathy, inviting their insights into his reflections and decisions. Weeks rolled into months, and Jack's improvements began to attract attention. The university acknowledged the cultural progress, praising the faculty's dedication and evolving mindset. Jack received recognition which came less from accolades on paper and more from meaningful impacts within their team dynamics. Each acknowledgement felt deserved. He knew he had earned his place not just through ambition, but through commitment to fostering a supportive environment for those around him. As he stood at the podium during the next faculty meeting, he looked out over familiar faces, a blend of apprehension and excitement swirling in the room. He spoke not just as an individual but as a representative of shared growth, a beacon for anyone willing to embrace the uncertainty of change. "I've learned that it's not only about rising to confront injustices," he began, his voice steady and clear. "It's also about welcoming the vulnerability needed to foster collaboration. Together, we have created this space, one where accountability and leadership coexist. Let us continue to build on this foundation, embracing every challenge with clarity and purpose." The applause that followed felt less like recognition for one person and more like a communal celebration of a shift in culture. This acknowledgement was reflective of Jack's own transformation. He was not alone in his journey anymore. He had created a ripple effect through genuine leadership. As Jack stepped away from the podium, a path forward unfurled before him. He knew a personal journey toward ambition persisted, but now it was grounded in the shared efforts of his colleagues. He felt a surge of confidence, one that burgeoned from integrity and connection. Returning home that evening, he was greeted by the bubbling energy of Mia and Lucas. "Did you inspire everyone to work more as a team?" Mia asked, eyeing him with expectancy. "I hope so, kiddo. But more importantly, we need to keep looking out for each other, just like we do in our family," he replied, a broad smile gracing his face. His heart swelled with pride. He realized that success was not only measured in career recognition but also in guiding his children through life's challenges with a sense of purpose. In that moment of sweet familial connection, Jack felt undeniably whole. He had conquered doubt, embraced vulnerability, and forged ahead in a way that not only transformed his professional landscape but redefined his essence as a father. He recognized there was no end point. This was a continuous journey of growth, an unwavering commitment to nurturing dreams, and the goal of instilling resilience in the hearts of those he loved most deeply. The sun sank low on the horizon, painting the sky in a cascade of colors, an emblem of both closure and the promise of a new dawn. With renewed determination, Jack inwardly declared that he would forever strive to embody the lessons learned, standing strong on the foundation built through love, integrity, and the courage to speak truth. Let this be the moment where we redefine our own narratives, embracing the unknown, advocating for change, and uplifting our loved ones through every step of the journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters more than ever. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice is essential. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the power of spreading inspiration.